There are three ways to take a tincture. One of the most commonly asked questions I'm asked about tinctures is how much do I take? And I would say, first and foremost, if you are working with a practitioner and they have given you a recommended dose, I would follow that. There are obviously certain protocols for certain herbs, for certain conditions. So first and foremost, always follow the guidance of your practitioner if you're working with somebody. Now, I'm speaking more generally here when I say that there are three ways to take a tincture. So you can kind of navigate, intuit your way through incorporating herbs into your everyday, regardless of what it is and what you're working with. Okay, so probably the most common, the standard would be considered, the therapeutic dose or the physical dose. This is often what you're going to find on, a bottle of tincture with directions. Now, it's typically, let me just use one where we can kind of see the nice color. It says a rhodiola is a dropper full, so it's going to be 1 to 3 dropper fulls 1 to 3 times a day. And I know that is a very kind of wide, broad window, but that is kind of the general direction you can take with tinctures. Now, of course, depends on the herb that you have and what you're using it for. So, for instance, if it's a herb to help with sleep, maybe it's chamomile, maybe it's valerian, passion flower, you name it, the use of the herb, 1 to 3 dropper fulls throughout the day, is probably not the best advice. It's more specific to when you're going to use it, or if it's pine pollen, you're going to take it around a workout, right? So giving very, very, very broad parameters here that you can kind of get a sense of how tinctures are taken and then how you can then apply that to your life. So 1 to 3 dropper fulls, 1 to 3 times a day. If it was something for digestion, maybe it's before and after meals, that kind of thing. So the main point is therapeutic dose. It is full dropper full, so you basically just hit the top of there, and then that kind of lifts and fills it about 2/3, 3/4 of the way. That would be considered therapeutic dose. 1 or 2 of those, and you can take them straight in the mouth. You can add them to tea, you can put them into your elixirs, even just a little bit of water, shoot it. I would be mindful of each tincture will have a varying percentage of alcohol. Some of them, like B propolis, are actually very high in alcohol because that level of strength is needed to pull and extract the properties from the resin, so it needs a high percentage. There are other ones that don't need quite as high, and when I say high, we're talking 70-80% alcohol, and that just straight into the mouth can be too much. It can burn, right? So you definitely want to prefer to chase it with a bit of water, add it to tea so it's not straight into the mouth. They might have something else, let's say something like Mindful, right? The blend that we make here in-house, percentage is not as strong. Maybe it's in the 30 to 40% range. Again, you might prefer to dilute that down in water so it's not as strong, or into tea. It's still going to be just as effective as taking it straight in the mouth. There's a lot of directions out there on the internet say, hold underneath the tongue. You've got very sensitive tissue, and it is true that, by placing it under the tongue, it's a direct absorption. This is one of the benefits of tinctures, is that it goes instantly into the bloodstream and then can travel to where your body can need and utilize that medicine. The straight high percentage tinctures, do not put them underneath your tongue. Definitely have a little bit of water, have a bit of tea, and then you can kind of swish and utilize that method there. But most tinctures are going to be too strong to put straight underneath the tongue. Okay, so first method was 1 to 3 droppers, 1 to 3 times a day, or as you intuitively feel. This is the kind of the therapeutic dose, to get the benefits. And this is a tincture that you might be taking for a period of time, let's say a month. Most of the sizes of the tinctures are, so you can kind of go through a month with that to feel the benefits, the effects of the herb. Now, on either end of the spectrum of this kind of middle path of the therapeutic dose, you can have your microdose, right? And we know this terminology from people utilizing psilocybin and kind of the microdose. So it's a small dose. I learned this from Yarrow Willard and some of his teachers that talks about the etheric dose, the spirit dose, and what that looks like Let's take chamomile, as an example. This is one that maybe you're already very familiar with the herb. You've been working with it. Your body kind of knows the effects, its benefits. Or you're just a very, very, very sensitive person. Or you just maybe are wanting to work intuitively with herbs in this way. What that looks like is literally 1 or 2 drops of the herb. So not dropper fulls, but just a little kind of drop in the mouth. Your body goes, taste the herb, begins to shift and respond. That's all it takes, is just a little bit of a drop. And you can take that again 1, 2, 3 times throughout the day. It's kind of, on the lines of this thinking of this kind of homeopathic principle. Sometimes we don't need the big full dose. Sometimes it's, again, just a little drop. Could be into your water bottle, just to kind of like give it that energetic imprint, that vibration to influence the body as you so desire. Blue lotus, another herb that you might use in that way. There is no right, no wrong to how you take a tincture, how much, when. I would encourage you to experiment, to try these different various methods. So we've got our kind of therapeutic dose, we've got our micro dose, and then of course on the other end of the spectrum we got the macro dose. Now this is where you might take a tincture that is normally a 30-day supply, and you might consume it within 1, 2, or 3 days. Again, friend Jarl Willard, second generation herbalist, formulator, amazing plant wizard, and he's got a formula from Harmonic Arts called Cold Defense, and he used that as an example of like, okay, something's going around the office, feel that little scratch in the throat, like you might be coming down on something. That's where you might actually, again, take that whole, like it's maybe a 50 or a 60 ml bottle, and you're doing 10 to 20 mils at a time, and just really dosing it. So the mega dose, the macro dose, to really kind of support, influence your body in the direction that those herbs will want to take it. So cold defense, again, might be a thing. Turmeric, maybe there's some inflammation that you're dealing with, or maybe it's pain, so a California poppy or a white willow, right? You need a much larger, stronger dose of a particular herb. That can be the appropriate time for that. Or even one of more of these like kind of subtle herbs, right? Blue lotus, people like to use it to kind of like influence dreams and dream state, right? Well, maybe it's taking a much larger dose of it before bed and experimenting and seeing how that works. Like I said, there's no right, there's no wrong to taking tinctures. This should be kind of an individual, personal, intuitive journey, and knowing that you can work with tinctures, herbs in this form along that spectrum, from the micro to the physical to the major kind of macro dose. Encourage you, and of course, begin to research the herbs, learn about the herbs. There's so much nuance, which is why I'm presenting this kind of so broadly. I've used rhodiola kind of as an example here, just because it's right beside me on the shelf. But interestingly enough, in this book here, The Boreal Herbal by Beverly Gray, she's got a section where she talks all about rhodiola, and very interesting. Listen to this here. So she says, rhodiola has more of a stimulating effect in smaller amounts and a more sedative effect in larger amounts. So some herbs can work that way, right? You think it would be the opposite, right? But this is very interesting, that in a smaller amount it's more stimulating, and in larger amounts it is more sedative. Mucuna, I've also experienced that as well. In large amounts, like very sedative, smaller amounts more stimulating. Other herbs might be completely the opposite way around. This is the fun, this is the journey of being your own herbalist, beginning to learn about herbs, their benefits, their properties, the energetics they have, and then playing with different dosages to get different effects. So yes, hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully that gives you more insight and clarity on the best ways to take tinctures.